Welcome to Integrity Over Scale. I am your host, Leili, and today we are going beyond a rollout and talking about why strategies fail without lived behavior. And I do have an interim co-host, Max. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you for being here to help me navigate through this world.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm really excited. There are lots of fun changes and ways that I want to help the audience and the listeners. So I would love to kind of get into it and talk through it with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. The there's a lot, like, you do a lot, and it's very, technically heavy, so it's really nice for somebody like me because I always tell people, like, "Hey, explain it to me like you would explain it to a toddler to make it easy for me to understand," because I tend to be more of a high level guy, so being on the show with you, this is really, really cool, and I'm really excited to, learn about, going beyond the rollout, exactly what you do, and the reality gap in transformation because this this sector and specifically what you do can be a total game changer
Mm.
for your clients. So explain why in vivo, what is that, give me the lowdown on the name and kind of how you got into doing this, why you're passionate about it. I'd love to learn that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Max. Maybe you just did my job and I can just go ahead and close off this chapter because I think you just explained it pretty well. What I had noticed as a consultant, and one of the reasons why I left that world and started my own thing is that there's a gap that most companies don't want to talk about. It's a reality gap. So if you've ever worked on any types of transformational projects, and then it could be like
Mhm.
electronic medical records rollouts, good practice compliance initiatives. I mean, anything, you know the pain of this gap better than I do. On paper, we talk all about strategies and they look clean. We love putting them in charts and graphs and timeline. It looks great. My
Yep.
favorite thing is the heavy reliance that we have on PowerPoint. The slides are polished, the roadmaps are sequenced, everything looks sharp. Even the governance, we send, I don't know, spend like 2, 3 weeks on just governance alone. But then something happens. The rollout starts and then behavior doesn't follow. And in fact, that roadmap that we had, it has to shift on the timeline.
Mhm.
The PowerPoint we made for hours and hours, it's just not communicating with the audience.
Mhm.
And that's the gap. That strategy is intent. And our intention is always what's best for the most part. Anyone that I've worked with, any companies that I work with, I mean, we want to do what's best for the company. But the
Mhm.
reality is behavior. And most
Right.
organizations operate in what I call in vitro leadership. And of course, I have stolen that from, just more scientific terminology. But
Yeah.
the idea is in vitro is the lab environment. It's me being stuck in theory. I spend time creating frameworks. It's my
Yes.
perfectly sequenced slides I'm so proud of, but it's an
Yep.
illusion of control.
You're so in vivo, you're talking about, like, real-time behavior under high stakes pressure when people the modalities and, how people work is actually following the nice, spreadsheets that were created, which is really, it's interesting to me is there's this framework that I use all the time is and it's like a warning almost, is don't confuse the menu
Yeah.
with the meal. Right?
Yeah.
Because I can create the coolest plan, I can lay out the goals, I can lay out, the benchmarks, and as long as everything works great, then the plan's gonna execute, but if it doesn't, it's not necessarily from, a failure to plan and to set things up right and to map it out, but like you said, is the team, the company, the people, are they actually moving in that direction and are they adopting that framework, right?
Exactly. It's all in real life. So for me in Vivo, and the reason why I named my company that is how exactly what you said. Leaders are going to show up under pressure. It's what they
Mm,
tolerate when timeline slips. It's who they protect when things are
mhm.
uncomfortable, and then even the reward when shortcuts saves time. You want to hear what's even tougher to understand is organizations spend millions, sometimes tens of millions on these systems, right? Like
Yeah.
these EMR system, EHR integrations, and then all because they think this is going to save the company and it's going to
Yeah,
help
it tools
them.
and systems, that's, like, the biggest buzzword right now, right? Like, everything is like, here's the shiny new, system, the ops system that's gonna help your company and streamline everything in X, Y, and Z, and so, yeah, I mean, I know I've worked with companies who have, like, spent multi-millions on integrating, software and all kinds of stuff, and I don't know, I haven't looked at the P&Ls, so I don't necessarily know if it worked or not, or, but I completely understand that. And so when you work with a client who's done
Mhm.
this and they're asking you, "Hey doctor, I don't know why we created this system. We're using this. It's proven, the data's there, this system works. I don't know why this isn't helping." How do you like how do you help them pinpoint what the issue is and how to fix it? Like, what do you actually do?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's all about adoption, right? It's not because the system is wrong, it's because the behavior never shifted. And it starts with first and foremost sponsors. So if a sponsor still shuts down disagreements in meetings, if they avoid accountability, I mean, even if
Mhm,
managers are rewarded for speed over coaching, those are all issues that really matter. And so one of the things that I'll go into right now is just the love that a sponsor gives starts with middle managers. And that's one of the frameworks that I have is middle managers, they are the most structurally misunderstood group in a company. We load them with the
mhm,
slide decks, we give them messaging packets, we ask them to drive alignment, and then we treat them like task drivers. And what's even more amazing is that we make them so tactical that we completely forget to develop their strategic side. We basically make them the
mm,
messengers. So, funny enough, one of the main excuses that I hear from middle managers, and it trickles down up, is, "Well, they're overwhelmed. We need to simplify the communication." And it's like, no, 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 no. So one of the things is they're overwhelmed because they're being asked to carry change without authority, without coaching skill development, without behavioral
yes,
clarity. And this
yep,
creates what I call a bridge to nowhere because information moves, but transformation doesn't. So I developed what's called the leadership adoption framework because transformation doesn't stick through communication plans. It's through everyday leadership behaviors. What the
mhm,
manager is going to tolerate, what they interrupt, what they're going to ignore, what they escalate. So at in Vivo, I work with leaders, and one thing that I stress within this framework is that I'm not going to train managers to deliver messages because it doesn't work. We have to turn them into strategic change agents, plain and simple. So the shift is subtle, but it's powerful because not only are you helping your managers become more effective, but you're also developing them from a strategic perspective to move into even senior positions in the future. So I look
sure,
at, yeah.
which is what they want, right? I mean, that's, I had a corporate boss that would tell me at the end of the year, he takes, 15 to 20% of the stuff that he did, and he
Mhm.
teaches somebody else how to do it, because not only does it offload for him, but it also builds up people under him, gives more responsibility and puts them in more of a leadership role and things like that. So I completely get what you, uh, get everything you're talking about. And I know that in sectors like aerospace and biotech, like there's got to be a literal cost of losing a leader's emotional intel. Like, if you've got somebody that just doesn't get it, in high stakes sectors like that, like how do you manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's more about helping the leader feel secure under uncertainty. So
Mm,
managers can absorb that pattern a little bit better. And I think it's also breaking their own patterns. So within that leadership adoption framework, we're interrupting that pattern. And we're not just telling managers what to do, but we're helping them see how their micro behaviors are going to anchor transformation or completely destroy it, which actually leads me to another framework that we have with the sponsors. Because if you go up on top, we're not just talking about middle managers anymore, because, like I said, it's not always up to them. Executive sponsorship is also another key to success. And most
mm,
organizations, all they do is they assign a sponsor. They don't practice sponsorship. And this is probably one of my favorite things to say, but I usually observe what I call sponsorship theater. It's some of the best acting I have ever seen sponsors do. They act like this symbolic approval. They do kickoff speeches that are clearly not written by them. They
mhm.
attend quarterly check-ins and they show some shape or another more theatrical act by saying like, "This is the flaw." I'm pointing their finger what went wrong and trying to shift all the timeline, but there is no visible obstacle removal. It's some of the best acting
Mm,
I've ever seen, to be quite honest with you. But it's what an executive does when they're overwhelmed or they are not sure what that assignment really means. The timeline is
right.
going to slip, right? The board's going to shift. The chess pieces won't move. So this is why I have built another framework of mine, which is Executive Sponsorship Accelerator, and I work directly with executive sponsors in this active transformation. And it's not in a classroom; it's real life. So I spend time with
Okay, so
them.
you
Yeah.
yeah, you actually do you work, nationally or just locally, or how far is your reach?
Absolutely. So I am with them, whether it's one on one or in person. However, that sponsor or the sponsors would like to work with me, that's going to be my
Mhm.
communication style. And what I want to do is basically use this in real life. So as the rollout is happening, I am there coaching them in every step of the way. I'm clarifying the accountability. What does that mean for them? What's the expectation of them? What's visible engagement looking like? How do you make
Yeah.
decisions under ambiguity? Especially with the world of AI, and this is why I have specialized in AI and have attended Northwestern because I wanted to give that love and support to the sponsors. Um,
Yeah.
and then even how to remove barriers without creating political fallout. I've had sponsors where they clash with other sponsors. And because of that, deadlines uh, have to shift from like tomorrow to 3 weeks from now. And 3 weeks from now even gets more delayed to 6 months from now. But when we do this well, I mean, I've seen like 65% increase in visible executive sponsorship activity. When we do practice this coaching, when we do help through this
Yep.
acceleration, it's visible, it's not theatrical anymore.
Yeah, so then let's see, what are the specific behaviors that, managers need to model to turn a new process from, just instruction, into an actual habit?
I love that question because this is the perfect time to do this podcast because we are now in 2026. And I want to zoom.
AI is crazy.
It
It's
is. Yeah.
it's just like it's getting bigger and bigger and things are less human. And then now I think in the next like 4 or 5 years, like we're not going to be able to tell the difference if it's your AI or if it's actually a person. So yeah, I didn't mean to derail you, but please continue with what you were saying. This stuff just blows my mind. So that's why I think it's so important what you're actually doing, especially like at the leadership level. You know what I mean?
You can derail anytime because I love this conversation so much. It's why I do what I do. And
Mhm.
to your point, I mean, there's a broader shift happening in leadership. So from now, 2026 and beyond, speed without integrity is going to collapse faster than ever. And so the
Yeah.
philosophy is pretty simple. And this is probably why the podcast is named the way it's named. It's integrity over scale. I want
Yeah,
leaders
which,
to
by the
choose
way,
that.
real quick, when I read that, I was like, "Wait a sec, that sounds like me as a business owner." I'm like, "Do you mean that I have to slow everything down and not just focus on scaling?" Because so many, like, oh my god, Leili, I have met so many entrepreneurs that are like, "Who can I pay the least amount to do the most amount of work?"
My
And if,
gosh.
because that's how I'm gonna scale. And if they don't wanna do it, where can I find somebody who will do it for that price? You know what I mean? Because, like, a lot of businesses adopt that, right? Because it's just all about the profits at the end of the day. And, like, I get that, like, as a business owner myself, like, looking at, the P&L and the KPIs and, like, okay, like, I can't afford this, but I need, but then on the other hand, if you have, garbage in, garbage out. If you're not treating your people well and training them and focusing on mental health, emotional intelligence, building leaders. Like in my business, I need another me, right? I can't just hire somebody and pay them the least amount and send them an SOP doc and say, "Okay, here you go." Like,
Mhm.
no, I have to like spend time with this person. I have to teach this person, like how I do things and how to communicate with my specific clients and why it's done that way. And then when there's other people that we bring on, what they need to be success, like that's like the heart of a company, right? Which is
Mhm.
why I don't know if you're familiar with Gary
Mhm.
Vaynerchuk. Do you know who that is?
Mhm.
He created a position, a CHO, which is a chief heart officer.
Oh, I love
And
that.
basically, right, this person basically just like goes around, makes sure everybody is feeling secure, that there's purpose in what they're doing. Is there anything, in the company structure that's bothering them or that they feel could be improved? It's just like somebody to go around and high five people and make sure they're happy, because guess what? Happy employees uh, are retained longer, and not only that, but they will end up making your company more profitable, right? But with this AI stuff now, it's crazy. You know, fire your whole marketing team because now all you need is this one AI. Fire your ops team. This AI tool integrates with everything. And like that might there's definitely value in tools like that, but only to a certain extent. Like there's certain things that AI shouldn't be doing for you. Right? I mean, that's how I see it.
I mean, everything you've said is just fantastic because this is the problem, right? We are so constantly worried about surviving that we sound counterintuitive because we're so adamant about some of these other pieces where, to your point, you're bringing someone who's a chief of heart, who takes
Yeah,
time to get to know their people. And this is the point about slowing down because you need to align consciously with your goals and your strategic goals. Um,
for sure.
that is going to be a lot faster from a long term perspective than rushing a broken culture into a new system. That's when you hire someone really quickly, fire someone really quickly. You start to
Yes.
guess, you become more tactical. And this is actually, I'll be honest with you, Max, one of the most common mistakes I see leaders make is they are in these high positions and they still
Mhm.
act like an individual contributor. So they become more tactical rather than strategic.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Then, just there's a lot of stress, a lot of moving parts and all of that, which I understand, but I gotta tell you, the last corporate position that I had before I started my own business,
Mhm.
my boss, he was super hard on me, but he also taught me more about business in 4 years than any school, anywhere I've ever, so he
Mhm.
threw a lot at me. But I remember, like, when I was going through my divorce, like, he would have me come into his office once a week and talk, like, "How are you? What's going on? How can I help? I've been through this too." Like, he had this, like,
Mhm.
open door policy that I feel like a lot of, companies are like, "Well, don't bring your problems in here, check them at the door." This guy was, like, totally the opposite, and I worked harder for that guy because he did that for me. Like, one time I pulled into the parking lot and I dinged my brand new car
Oh,
on, Yeah, on one of the bricks, the parking stopper bricks, and he's just like, "Oh, I don't want you to start off your new year like that. I'll pay for that for you," and, like, I mean, you could just tell that he really appreciated his leaders, right? And so that made
Mm,
me want to turn around and do that with the people that worked under me. You know? So it's just like it's that old saying, pardon my language, but shit rolls downhill, right? People say that when the boss is mad, it rolls downhill, but it
mhm,
works the other way too, you know, like kindness, empathy, um, different people, like you can't lump everybody into one modality and say this is how this person operates. Different people work differently. So taking the time to flesh that out and cater to those people, I think is really important. And I wanted to ask you, do
mhm.
you have like a disc assessment type of thing where you go in and you're able to profile different leaders and how they might react, how they work, what their strong points are and things like that? Because as a CEO or a business owner, that's gold if you know how your leaders work, right?
Yes. I do have that measurement tool where we practice it from the beginning and then to the end to see if we see any improvements. It's a scorecard. So before I start with any of my clients, I'll have them provide the scorecard. I'll even observe from my end and do the scorecard myself from an observational standpoint to see,
Oh, nice.
even from a self-awareness, because self-awareness is huge when it comes to leadership. So I want to know, how far am I with my score and how far are they with the score? Do they
Right.
see what I'm seeing? And that tells me so much. And so from there, I have created this cycle where with the leader, I'll work with them, figure out where the leader is in the scorecard, and then find ways to bring that into the real life rollout and also develop them from a leadership standpoint so that they can do a better job with the transformation.
Yeah, I love that. I gotta ask you, I've got a daughter
Mhm.
and, she's 9 years old and she's kinda sassy and she doesn't
Wow.
let anybody push her around, and I'm completely fine with that. I think it's important for young ladies to have a backbone and, just to make sure nobody pushes them around. And I wanted to ask you, like, For I want
Mhm,
her to be like, I want her to be whatever she wants to be, but,
mhm,
if she was like, a badass, that would be awesome, and I want her to feel like she can be a badass. So, is there anything like, for ambitious women in leadership,
mhm,
does this apply differently for them than it does for men? Or what are some of the differences that you see in, women-run businesses and companies or just how women operate because like growing up, like I'm a man, we plateau at about 16 and then we stay there for the rest of our lives. I'm just kidding. But anyways, well, men, we can't multitask. Like I run into this all the time with my partner. Like I can do one thing at a time, and
mhm,
she's over here doing like this and that and this and that. So because the corpus callosum or whatever that connects our brain hemisphere, it's more developed in women than it is in men. So I'm just
mhm,
curious, like with the leadership standpoint and the emotional intelligence, what are
mhm.
some of the key differences you see there?
First of all, your daughter is in good hands because you have very good a level of knowledge to help her succeed. So I'll say that first thing.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
the second is I have been very fortunate to work with ambitious leaders and even luckier to coach women in leadership roles and just ways to navigate power dynamics. And
Hmm.
sometimes I think for women, we feel like we have to do that quietly because that's how we were raised to do that.
Sure.
And what I'm seeing is that I don't want them to fit the culture. I want them to shift the culture.
Yes.
So
That is that's it. That's so important.
that's what has been very influential is usually I'll have leaders who are women say to me, I need to fit this board of, 12 men, and I'm the only
Yep,
woman here. What do I do? How do I
yep.
do this?
How do I play ball? How do I not rock the boat, but also be respected? How do I, look like one of the guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely get that.
And to me, the strength of a woman is not to play one of the guys,
Yeah,
because
100%.
most women that I meet, they are very good at psychological safety. It's not a buzzword anymore. This is a very big thing that needs to happen in corporate worlds, as we've been talking. Um, no one understands how to really use this. And I believe that women have this understanding of it where they can shift that room to this
Mhm.
psychological safety net that we have. So
Yep.
it's more of, I want you to bring this performance multiplier rather than to fit a certain need that you think you need. And I say that quote unquote because honestly, there's no need to fit this culture. So when leaders learn to connect psychologically, from a safety perspective to career mobility, they stop trying to lead like the dominant voice. And
Mm.
power play in today's leadership is a child's play, because I can't tell you how many times I've sat as a coach or a consultant in a room where a leader has a tantrum. I mean, I call it a tantrum. People in that meeting, because they're a leader in a high position, they start to get anxiety and they start to get fear. And all I could see is their childhood self is still there, and they haven't
Oh
matured
my
it
god.
enough to
Oh my
have
god.
decent conversations.
Wow, this that's so crazy. I mean, I've met, been in meeting rooms with multi-million dollar CEOs just completely put together and one thing doesn't go their way and they literally turn into toddlers,
Oh boy.
you know?
This,
I mean, that's, I mean, honestly, like I've got some myself, I've got some defensiveness, I've got some fear of authority figures, some things that I went through when I was a kid that have carried through into my career and
mhm,
actually like not addressing those earlier on. If I would have addressed that stuff earlier on,
yeah.
it'd be different now, I think. But, I started going to therapy and all of that stuff, and I've done that for years. But this whole like idea that mental health and psychology should be separate than what
Mhm,
happens in the workplace, it's just not, it's not good. And now I know like Gen Z, like Gen Alpha, my daughter, these kids are crazy. Like they've got us angry millennial parents, like the parent that drives down to the school to yell at the teacher for X, Y, and Z. Like when I was a kid, my dad would be like, "Well, you shouldn't have been acting like an idiot. What are you doing?" But like I'm
yeah,
not like that, right? Like these angry millennial parents. And then so these kids don't take any crap from anybody. Like if my daughter doesn't like something, she just straight up says it.
yeah,
And I'm just like, wow, like keep that. Like learn how to say it tactfully, but always use your voice. If something doesn't feel right, use your voice. And especially in the workplace, I think that's what makes companies great is when people are allowed to use
mhm,
their voice. They're not penalized for it. And middle management, my God, what a
mhm,
miserable place to be, right? But it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that.
mhm. Some of that comes from your top executives allowing you to do that. And you mentioned something very valuable with generations. Millennials have had it the hardest, and I'm a millennial, so I feel like maybe I'm a little biased with that. But
Ah,
uh,
me too.
we're in a shift. I mean, we've seen phones where, I think there was a video that I had recently just watched, where they were saying, "Wow, Gen Z will never know that there's a house phone where everybody in the family uses
Right.
it." Um,
One phone.
we have our own obstacle as far as millennials go, where we are finding our passion in the way we talk in our work, ways that we can speak up. So we have our own challenges. And as I've been fortunate enough to, I've been teaching. I'm a professor too, and I teach leadership
Yep.
strategies. Gen Zs also have a very different obstacle, so they are able to voice their opinion. From what I'm seeing, the experiences and observations that I've had, they're not voicing it in a very assertive way. It becomes very
Mm,
defensive and a little hard to swallow. And especially if they have millennial leaders at this moment before they are leaders themselves, it's causing a lot of
yep.
conflicts. So, all in all, I think we have to
That's
start
fascinating.
leading consciously, right? It's not so much to me, like, it's not about the gender shift anymore or about the generational part. It's more of a cultural shift. where we're all
Mhm.
invited to contribute in a healthy way. We bring our best self, and I hate saying the best self because I feel like every coach and consultant that you meet is like, I want you to be your best self. There's a reason why we say that. We want
Yeah.
authenticity. That's all we
Yes.
want.
Right. Right, and
And
that's, people are scared. I honestly, like, that's been a pinnacle part of when I do an exercise. I've been in recovery for a long time. I've got about 13 years of sobriety now, and I did this exercise where I boil down all my fears. It could be the highest level, like, I'm
yeah,
afraid that Starbucks isn't gonna have cold brew this morning. It could be, like, the dumbest thing,
yeah.
but if I boil every single fear I have down, it comes down to 2 things. It's, if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me, and I'll be rejected. Those are that, like, when I boil down all of my fears. And so when you're sitting in a room and there's people that you've assigned more authority or more importance than you,
Mhm.
when I go to say, "Well, here's what I mean, immediately I've got this critic. I call him the vulture. He's right there,
Oh,
right?
I
He's
love
like,
that you named it.
yeah, oh, I've got, it's called, I call it, dream or theater. What is it? Theater of the, this is a sober person. Theater of the mind. There's all these different characters up there, but the vulture is the guy who, before my feet even touch the ground in the morning, is like, well, it's going to be a bad day. Your clients are going to leave you. You're not doing a very good job. She's not respecting you how you should be. Have a great day. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that thing right there, that's just kind of right there, and it's not based in truth. You know what I mean? And the only way to get over that is to exercise your voice and exercise your authenticity, because there is no model, or you can't apply a system to something and then not actually execute on it.
Yeah.
And that's why, when I'm like, "Oh, I'm having a problem with communication," people are like, "You gotta communicate more." That's the way to fix it. You have to go out on a limb, take the chance, and say what you really wanna say. And 9 times out of 10, guess what? It doesn't turn out how I thought it was going to. Nobody's like, "Oh, you're an idiot. Oh, that's a bad idea." Like, that never happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sure that there's leaders that are, have years of this kinda internal trauma and struggle. And I know a lot of men, and this is getting better now, but a lot of men, we don't talk about this kinda stuff. Tough it out, man. Don't be a wimp. Just tough it out, and, show your authority and get respect, and then you'll
Mhm.
get the life that you want. But, I don't think that's a very good longevity strategy anymore with the
Mhm.
cultural shift that's happening, right? I mean, Gen Z, they don't even they're not even working, like, they're making TikToks and making millions of dollars doing that. Like, they're finding other creative ways to make money. And I think part of that is because they don't want to join a big conglomerate or corporation where they're going to be stuck in middle management and they're just going to be a megaphone, telling these people to do this and feeling stressed out and having, all of that. So I think, yeah, like, that's why I love, like, what you're doing, because you're literally helping to reshape how people think about and structure their companies internally, emotionally, psychologically, so they are more profitable, because they will be more profitable,
Right.
right? I mean, there's a direct
There
correlation
is.
there.
There is. Max, thank you for saying all of that. I think it's so important for us to understand that this is the world that we live in. We don't have individuals in these leadership roles that have been given the opportunity. Forget the fact that, the self awareness is part of authentic leadership. They weren't given the opportunity to develop their self awareness. And
Yep.
believe it or not, even the moral compass part of authenticity, authentic leadership is moral processing. You can tell what's right and wrong, and you can also
Yes.
influence your people. So there is this level of opportunity for us. I mean, even I was talking to a couple individuals that are in medical schools. They're starting to teach emotional intelligence to them because
Yes.
when you,
So important.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like, it's so crazy, like, in school. I think in schools, like, look, I know that STEM and math and science are important, but I haven't used freaking calculus one day in my life. I really haven't. But I'm not saying it's not valuable, but if
Mhm.
there was a class, uh, in elementary school or junior high or high school
Mhm.
that was like, you know, a finance, how to balance your checkbook, all that stuff. One that was based in emotional intelligence, where it's like, how do you deal? These are the psychological hurdles that life is going to throw at you when you get out in the real world. Here's how you can deal with some of them and teach, different wellness mnemonic devices and just things like that kids could actually adopt early. My God, what a difference that would make. And I guess I might be a little bit of a nihilist about this, but I kind of feel like, big government doesn't really want a bunch of healthy, well people walking around that are thinking for themselves. But that's a whole nother topic, completely. But anyways, my point is that I think that starting at a younger age, if we shifted what we were teaching kids to
Yeah.
include some of the emotional intelligence stuff, my God, it'd be a different world.
This is why I didn't have to do this, Max, but I really wanted to because uh, my dissertation for my doctorate program was about hubristic behavior. And hubristic
Mm,
behavior is I'm very passive aggressive. I'm not very kind to my people, and in a
yep,
very extreme way, hubris can even shift to narcissism at work in the workplace. So reading this and then also hearing, I worked with mid-level managers in that research, and I asked them, "Hey, what was it like working with senior executive with hubristic leadership styles?" And uh, hurt so much. I mean, to a point where one person was just it became ill. One had a miscarriage. One had,
yep,
mental illness where they had to step away. All of this
yep.
to say, there is an opportunity for us to be better and to show up better in the workplace. And we're there more than we are at home. That's
Yeah, no
something to
kidding.
pause about.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. So for the specific audience out there that's listening to this, like, for the leaders, the C-level people, the people that you would wanna work with, before we
Mm.
s go, what's your challenge for them? Like, what should they look like? If there's one thing they take away to say, "Hey, am I doing this? Am I thinking about this the right way? What's my approach here?" Like, what do you urge them to ask themselves?
I want the listeners to go beyond the conversation you and I have had, and really ask themselves a few things. If you're a sponsor, are you visible? Or are you just going with the flow of the fact that you're just assigned this role? And if you're a manager, are you coaching? Are you just
Yes.
communicating? If that's the case, then why is the coaching element not in there?
Yeah,
And
why are you not developing your people?
exactly.
Yeah.
And is behavior reinforced? Or is it, here's a new system, we're launching it, too bad, too sad, you do as I do. And I
Oh
want
my god. What you just said is like, my literal experience in
Oh.
corporate America for years. That's so crazy.
And these are the questions that I want the listeners to ask because, look, you and I are in this podcast. People are listening to it. You're answering it honestly to yourself. No one is in this room but yourself. And
Mm,
strategy doesn't fail in the boardroom when you're thinking about these questions. It's in your behavior. So, for listeners, if you're
yes.
navigating any transformation, in healthcare, life science, aviation, you name it, um, and you're feeling this reality app. If any moment in this podcast where you shook your head yes and went, oh my God, absolutely, absolutely, then let's examine what's happening beneath the rollout, what's happening to you. So if this resonates with you, I mean, follow this podcast, subscribe, share it with someone, and even reach out to me from
Yeah,
in
how do
Vivo
people get a hold of
Leadership.
you?
You can find
Yeah.
me and it's www.invivoleadershipstrategies.com. I'm also, you can find me on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, In Vivo Leadership Strategies, or myself, Leili Setagiani. You can always schedule time with me and have a 30-minute free consultation just to see how I can help you or at least see if this is a good fit. But I am here to serve. And this is why I left corporate world because I had learned the ins and out of it and felt like I needed to come out and help other people navigate through it, but not navigate in what we talked about. Stop fitting in the culture. Start
Mhm.
shifting the culture. And
Yeah.
so help
No,
them
that's
sort
why I did
that.
it too. I mean, I'm like unemployable now. I'm pretty sure I'm unemployable because
Yeah.
just the thought of having a boss tell me what to do. I know that sounds really bad, but I think it's from a collective experience of the issues that we've been talking about. It's just like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I can't do it. I just can't do it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, but it's also something like the company I'm building, like I'm quick to hire, slow to fire. I don't hire people based on their skill set even. I hire them based like, do I like this person? Can I trust this person? You know what I mean? Skills can be taught. And with AI now, look, man, like you can learn anything. You can learn anything, right?
I
But
will love that.
you need good people. You need good people that you trust, right?
I think this is such a great place to end the podcast too, Max, because
Yeah.
let's go into AI. It's going to do the things that you and I were raving about us doing. Like, I remember coding
Mhm.
was such a big element for a very long
Right.
time. Now it's just the
Yep.
funniest thing I've ever heard. I have a friend of mine who knows nothing about coding and asks AI to create an application for her to regulate her diet. She made it all on her own. But
Mhm.
this is where I want to stress that you can be different. Because if AI is handling all of this, then that means part of you is replaceable. That is the reality of it. What makes you
Mhm.
irreplaceable? Exactly what we're talking about today. The human
Absolutely.
centered approach to your leadership rather than the transactional and the tactical approaches that you've been taking.
That's so true. That's crazy. So,
Mhm.
honestly, yeah, this is a good place to end. Maybe next week we can talk about, AI and how that's shifting things in company culture. I mean, that's a big buzzword right now. And, there's a lot of people that are just looking at dollar signs, profits, and being like, "Who can I fire so I don't have to pay to do this?" And, customer service is going down. Customer service is not as good as it was. I mean, there's so much we can get into, but I thank you so much for having me on the show. And yeah, I'm excited to get together and do it all over again next week.